Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writing Center Open House. Just a quick sound check. If you can hear me, please click the hand to show that you're raising your hand. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. My name is Catherine Carson, and I am a course director in the English department, and I'm also part of the Writing Center's staff. Misty Wallard is actually the coordinator of the Writing Center, and she's the point person. So if you ever email the Writing Center or ask for an appointment, she's the one who's going to be receiving those requests. And we'll talk about how you can request an appointment in just a couple of minutes. So we've been working on providing workshops like this one to students. And just so you know, this open house is offered once a month. And we also have an APA style workshop once a month. That is going to occur 2 Fridays from now. And we're working on a grammar workshop, so keep your eyes open for that. Just to give you an idea of what we'll be doing today, this presentation on the Writing Center's offerings and some proofreading tips will last about half an hour. And afterward, I'll open up the floor for questions, but please reserve your questions until after we're done. You can either type them in the chat box or click the hand to raise your hand, and I will answer your question at the end. But once I get going with the presentation, it's kind of hard for me to go back and forth over to the chat box and then back to the presentation. So please be patient with me for that. And I am going to mute everybody just so that there's no confusion or feedback. All right. So, what is the Writing Center? The Writing Center provides a free writing consultation service for all Full Sail students from any degree program. And we can help with any part of the writing process for essay writing, brainstorming, research, outlining, thesis statements, and grammar. We can help you with proofreading and editing skills, but we are not a proofreading service. So we will not go through your paper and correct everything for you. The idea is that we empower you by giving you the tools so that you can then turn a critical eye to your own work. So we help you help yourself. We also help with APA style and creative writing, including script writing, ESL if you're a non-native English speaker or somebody who feels a little unsure about English writing, resumes and cover letters, and essentially any writing that you'll do here at Full Sail. The Writing Center is open from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. We cannot offer help on weekends. All help is provided during appointments, and there are a few different types of appointments that we offer. First, there are on-campus appointments. These are held in Building 4D, and they are up to an hour long, and they must be requested at least 24 business hours in advance. The most popular type of appointment is the online appointment. These are available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. And we use GoToMeeting, just like we're doing now for this session, for online appointments, except that those are offered, personally, one-on-one. These may be written in a chat box or they may be verbal. Unfortunately, we can't guarantee that they will be verbal communication. Sometimes we're in the office and we're unable to provide that to you, but we do offer that when possible. And these are up to an hour long, and just like the in-person appointments, they must be requested at least 24 hours in advance. We do offer library open hours. See Connect for this month's offerings in the library. No appointment is required for those, so you do not have to ask 24 hours in advance to go to a library time, but it is first come, first serve. And we will help you for as little time as you need, up to an hour. So if you just have a quick APA question, great, we'll help you out with that. If you need more in-depth help, we can help you there too. So, how can you schedule a Writing Center appointment? There are 3 ways. First, you can call 407-679-0100, which is Full Sail's number, extension 2340. And you will probably be prompted to leave a message, or someone from the Writing Center staff will answer the phone during business hours and help you set up an appointment. Email. You can email writingcenter@fullsail.com. And this is recommended because we are often in the library or on campus and not near the phone sometimes in appointments, but that's okay. We will set up your appointment. But if you email us, please give us your degree program, what kind of help you need, like if you need APA help, creative writing help, grammar help, and so forth. And let us know your availability. Like I would like an appointment on Tuesday in the afternoon, and we can help you out from there. If we have further questions, we'll email you back, and we'll always send you an email confirmation of your appointment information. You can also fill out the appointment request form on Connect. So I'm going to show you what that looks like now. Wait, yes, okay. So if I am on the Writing Center's page on Connect, here we go, Writing Center appointment request form. Oh, this is actually my view of it, but you can go to the Writing Center online request form and fill it out, and then it asks you all the information that you need to give, and we can easily schedule an appointment with you that way. So you can just click it over there or write under here, appointment request form. And back to our keynote. I also want to show you a couple of things on the website. And by that, I mean going back to the Connect page. We have blog posts, which might be helpful for you. If you go to the Writing Center's main page and then scroll to online resources, we offer links to outside sources such as the Purdue OWL, which I'll show you a little bit later, and Project APA, which is an APA site created by Full Sail instructors specifically for Full Sail students, and links to other grammar help. There's also an area with a blog, and you can find information, for example, on grammar. You can find information on APA, and there are some really cool downloads actually, such as a guide to how to set up your paper using APA format and so forth. So I highly recommend checking out the Writing Center's page in more detail if you haven't done so already. All right, now back to my presentation. Write better right now. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and give you some tips for proofreading and getting started with your work. So first, proofreading. When you proofread, you read over your assignment several times after you have written it in order to catch issues or mistakes with grammar, punctuation, spelling, or basically any place where writing could be made stronger. Many students tell us that they have a hard time catching their own mistakes, and there are some strategies that I'd like to share with you. First, and this one might sound a little counterintuitive, but you can take a break. If you stare at your writing for too long, your brain will skip over the mistakes. After you've written something, step away from your writing for a while. Go for a walk, listen to music, watch a TV show, make dinner. Basically, get your mind off of what you're writing. When you come back to it, it'll be easier for you to identify issues. Another thing I love to do is print out my work. The brain actually works differently when it's reading something from a page versus when it's reading something online. It's much easier to see mistakes on the printed page, and you can actually get involved with the work by circling things, highlighting things, crossing things out, spelling words correctly right on the paper, and then that forces you to check it again as you input those changes into your Word document. You can read your work out loud, and this can be immensely helpful too. You might find during a writing center appointment that your consultant reads the work to you or asks you to read the work out loud during the appointment. This can be really intriguing, okay? And it might sound so simple, but it actually helps you see things or hear things that you might not be able to notice if you just read silently and quickly. So read slowly when you're reading out loud. Read it backwards. This really tricks your brain. So what this means is you start with the end of your paper, read the last sentence, then read the second to last sentence, and so forth. Check for specific errors. I think this tip, next to reading out loud, is the most effective because it really helps me organize well. So every time you proofread, every time you read your paper over, proofread for something specific. For example, if you have trouble with commas, proofread your entire paper once, or at least once, looking only for comma errors. Circle every comma and then go back and make sure that it needs to be there or that it's being used effectively. Then, if you feel like you also have issues with fragmented sentences, which are incomplete sentences, check your paper again, this time looking only for fragments. If you want to check for spelling, check again, this time only looking for spelling. It's much easier to spot issues if you look for one type of error at a time than if you look for everything all at once. And now some paper writing tips. First off, make a plan. This is the first step. Have you ever sat down to write a paper from scratch and then you just stared at the screen, at that blinking cursor on the white page? It can be really intimidating. You might not be sure what to write. You might get frustrated and just walk away, taking a break before you even started. Maybe you just give up. You're not a bad writer. This happens to everybody. Well, just about everybody. I'm sure there's somebody that it doesn't happen to, but it happens to me too. You just need to make a plan. So here we look at the writing process holistically. When we talk about making a plan, what we're really referring to is the entire process. And there are 5 stages in the process. First, pre-writing. We need to make sure that we understand the assignment. So first, read it over carefully. Read through the instructions several times, making sure that you understand exactly what your instructor is looking for. If you have questions or need clarification, ask your instructor well before the due date. If the paper is due at midnight, don't ask at 10 p.m. You're probably not going to get a response before the paper is due. So prioritize your time. Will you have to complete any reading, Will you need to go to the library's databases or actually take a trip to the library? What kinds of things will you need to do before you actually start writing? You also want to make sure that you have a clear dialogue with your instructor and that you understand the goal of the assignment. For example, is it a research paper? Are you asked to make an argument and support it with outside sources? Or it could be an opinion paper, a critique, a compare and contrast paper, a discussion post, a blog post, a resume. Really think about the goals and objectives of the assignment. Next up, brainstorm. You are probably familiar with this term, which basically means taking some time to think about your topic. If the assignment sheet asks specific questions, really think about the answers to those questions. What ideas come to mind? Jot down a list of as many ideas as you can without judging them. You can also create a word web, starting with a major topic in the center of your paper, and then drawing lines from that topic outward and writing subheadings related to that. You can write an outline too. Look at the ideas that you come up with. Keep the good ideas, the ones that might work, and scratch out any ones that might not work for this particular assignment. Maybe there's something that you'd like to go back to later. Next up, research. If the paper requires you to do research, you've got to find outside sources that help support the main ideas that you came up with during your brainstorming session. So the library has research databases that you can use as part of the research process. So this is the library's page on Connect. And if you scroll down to research databases, you can go down to, for example, Academic Search Complete. Oh, well, I have to log in. I thought I was logged in. You can go to EBSCOhost or Academic Search Complete, put in all of your search information, your keywords, and a list of articles and their abstracts, which is a summary of the article, will come up. It's really useful, but you have to give yourself plenty of time to search and figure out what sources are going to work best for you and for the particular project you're doing. So you might be required to use a library database to find articles. You might also be required to use the general web, looking up information from interviews, videos, podcasts, and so forth. Give yourself plenty of time to do research. Next up, outline. This type of thing this page really looks intimidating to me. This looks like a little much for me, but this might make perfect sense to the person who created it. Create outlines and webs and charts and graphs without judgment. You don't have to show anybody these unless your teacher is asking to see them, of course. They don't have to be pretty. They just have to make sense to you. So think about what you will write about in your paper, how you'll support those ideas, and then what you want each paragraph to be about. The outline is like a map that you follow when you sit down to write. Now it's time to draft. One way to draft is to sit down and write for 5 minutes without stopping. If you're writing with pen and paper, sit down there and just don't lift the pen for 5 minutes. Just go. You can also just type for 5 minutes, ignoring any spelling issues, any grammar issues. The point is to just get the words out. You can always go back and reformulate later. So all of the steps that we just covered are in the pre-writing stage, which means that they should be done before you actually sit down to write. And doing all that prep, even though it might take some time, should make the actual writing process easier. And something that you also want to consider is your audience. Now, what do we mean when we say audience? A lot of people think that the audience for a paper is the teacher, or for a discussion post, the audience might be your classmates. Yes, that's a type of audience, but you also want to think about the purpose behind your work and who might be reading it on a more professional level. So these are the people you want to convince, inspire, motivate, empathize with, or sympathize with. So the instructor might ask you to write to a specific audience. Like if you're writing a paper about a problem in your industry and presenting a possible solution, the audience might be professionals in your industry. So ask yourself, who is my audience? Do I have more than one audience? And what is important to my audience? What are their values? What are they most likely to care about? What are they least likely to care about that maybe I don't need to include? Do I have something to say that might surprise my audience? And what do I want my audience to think, learn, or even assume about me from my writing? Tone is another aspect of audience. For example, if you write an email to your boss or to your instructor, it would probably be a bit more formal than a text you would write to your friend or an email you might write to your mom. When you're writing for class, make sure that the language that you use is academic and professional. This is more business writing and it's a little bit more formal than what you might say in face-to-face or text conversation. Try to write concisely. When drafting your paper, you want to make sure that you're not writing a lot of fluff and being wordy. Instead, get right to the point. Eliminate words like really, great, very, and adverbs, which are ly words usually. Words that don't really add meaning to the sentences. Avoid I believe, or I think, or in my opinion. These types of phrases are understood as being part of your paper when you are asserting your own point of view and your own conjectures. If there are too many ideas in one sentence, then you might have a run on sentence, so be careful about that. Don't try to cram too many ideas into one sentence or even into one paragraph. Try to be organized and focused, taking your paper one step at a time. Each paragraph should introduce a new idea, and the sentences in that paragraph should support that idea. All of the information, each paragraph, should relate back to your thesis, which is the central point or the argument that you're making in your paper. So everything relates back to the thesis, which usually appears in the introduction and then is typically repeated in the conclusion. Next up, revise. Once you've finished writing your paper, you're ready to move on. Students often confuse revision with editing. When we revise, we're looking at large global aspects of the paper that might need to be changed. These include things like, is the overall argument or thesis statement valid? Does it even make sense? Is there a logical flow of ideas and a solid structure? Does the research effectively back up your main ideas? Are you using effective transitions between ideas? Does anything seem out of place? And does anything need expansion? Do we need to go into more detail at any points during the paper? Then we edit. So once you've completed those big picture, global, higher order revisions, you can move on to the level of the word or sentence. So this is where you look for issues with grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, word choice, spelling, verb tense shifts, word choice, things of that nature. Last, publish. This is the part that feels the best. This is when you turn in your paper and you take a deep breath. Once you've completed the editing stage and you've gone through things a few times, your paper is probably ready to turn in. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about briefly here is using APA resources. APA stands for the American Psychological Association, and it is the official citation style that we use here at Full Sail. Every class at Full Sail has to have at least one assignment that requires research from the library databases. So if you haven't run into it yet, chances are you will soon. And it can be a little intimidating because there are many rules, but you don't have to memorize all the rules. Just find and use a good resource. So one resource that we like at the Writing Center, which I mentioned a little earlier, is the online writing lab at Purdue University. So this is their APA page. And here you can see, for example, in-text citations with explanations and examples down here. Now, the thing about the OWL at Purdue is that it can be very dense. It's a lot to go through, but it does give you a lot of information. A guide that's I think, is a little bit more accessible is called projectapa.info, and this was created by Full Sail instructors for Full Sail students. So, for example, if you're looking for an in-text citation example, you can go straight to in-text citations up here, formats of quotation, works by multiple authors, etc. Choose the one you like, and then you'll be given a couple of examples. All right. So we do host an APA style workshop too. If you're interested in that, that's going to be hosted in a couple of weeks, and you can find another invitation for it on Connect. So that concludes my presentation. Like I said, it was about half an hour long, and I'm going to open up the floor for questions. So if your hand is still raised from earlier in the presentation, please click it so that your hand goes down, and only raise your hand if you have a question at this point. I can answer questions about the Writing Center, writing in general, APA formatting, resumes, or creative writing. If I don't know the answer, we can look together. And if you have a question that requires a bit more detail and might require a full consultation, then I can lead you in the right direction to make an appointment yourself. If you don't have any questions and you're ready to go, by all means, you are free to leave at this point. But I'm going to address questions. Just so you know, this training is being recorded, so people might hear the questions that you are asking. I don't see any questions in the chat box right now. And Caitlin, I'm just going to put the hands down because I've seen these hands up the whole time. If you have a question, you can either raise your hand or put your question in the chat box. Somebody says that they need access to the Full Sail site. I'll cover that in just a moment privately with you, because that's something you may need to figure out with your advisor or your teacher. Any more questions? All right, well, if you're shy, you're welcome to ask afterward too. But at this point, I'll close down the presentation. Thank you so much for coming today on a Friday afternoon. I really appreciate it. We do these for you, and I hope that you'll utilize the Writing Center's resources in the future. Take care.